Most people think of AI as chatbots or image generators. In reality, modern AI is a complex layered system, and the real power sits at the bottom, the model layer itself. In episode 4 of our Control in AI series, we break down the AI stack, model, system, interface, and explain why whoever controls the model layer effectively governs the entire market. You'll learn how scale, learning effects, and scope economies concentrate advantage at the model layer, why the market has shifted from open research to centralized platforms, and the two competing visions of AI, shared infrastructure versus controlled platform.
So think about this for a second. You probably think you have, 100 different AI applications on your phone right now.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Right. You've got a dedicated app for drafting emails, maybe another one for generating slide decks, a personalized tutor for learning a language, a custom coding assistant. It's a lot.
It feels like this vibrant, endlessly diverse ecosystem, you know?
Exactly. It feels like
Yeah.
you're choosing between all these highly specialized tools. But what if I told you that like 90% of those apps
Yeah.
are basically just different paint jobs on the exact same underlying engine?
Yeah, that's the reality a lot of people are missing right now.
Because structurally, you aren't using 100 tools.
Hmm.
You were just interacting with one massive centralized intelligence network, just through different user interface wrappers.
Right.
So today we are going on a mission to decode the hidden mechanics of the AI market. We're going to look way past the flashy headlines about like new chat interfaces or image features, and we want to understand the actual physical structural reality of this ecosystem.
Which is so important because it dictates everything else.
Totally. We need to figure out who actually holds the power, why the market has shifted so aggressively from, decentralized open research into these highly centralized platforms, and most importantly, how this architecture directly dictates your daily digital life.
And to do that, we are diving into a really influential piece from May 2026. It's published on the EconWorks blog.
Yeah, it's a great source.
It's actually episode 4 of their ongoing series on AI control. The specific title is When the Model is the Market: Governance and Control in AI. And, it just provides this vital framework for understanding that what we're experiencing right now isn't just a technological shift.
Right.
It is a fundamental reorganization of digital economics.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can even begin to talk about who actually governs the market,
Right.
we have to map out what the AI market physically looks like today.
Yeah, you have to see the board before you can understand the game.
Exactly. We've moved way past the era where an AI was just a standalone algorithm running on some local server. The EconWorks piece argues that we have to stop looking at AI as a singular product.
Right, and start looking at it as a multi-layered stack.
A stack, right.
Because that structural perspective, that's the key to everything else in the source. If you don't map the architecture, you literally can't map the power dynamics.
So how do they break it down?
So the author breaks this AI stack down into 3 highly distinct layers. At the very top, you have the interface layer.
Okay.
This is the terminal point, the web apps, the chat windows, the mobile applications where the end user actually interacts with the software.
The stuff we actually click on.
Exactly. Then below that, sitting in the middle, is the system layer.
And what's happening there?
This is the orchestration environment. It's where you find the retrieval augmented generation pipelines, the vector databases, API integrations, and basically all the custom workflows that connect the raw intelligence to external business logic.
Got it. So it's the plumbing.
Yeah, the clumbing. And finally, anchoring the entire structure at the very bottom is the model layer.
The foundation.
Right. This is the foundational neural network itself, the core weights and parameters that actually possess the cognitive capabilities.
Okay, so model at the base, system in the middle, interface at the top.
Exactly.
And the logic here being that control at the foundation naturally propagates upward. It's like a skyscraper.
Oh, I like that.
The interface is the penthouse, the system is the plumbing and the elevators, but the model is the foundation. And if the foundation cracks or, if the landlord just changes the locks to the ground floor, everyone above is affected.
That's a really good way to visualize it. The ultimate takeaway from the EconWorks model is that whoever controls the foundational weights at that bottom model layer, they dictate the absolute boundaries of the layers above it.
Because they make the rules.
Exactly. They set the context window limits, they define the reasoning capabilities, they establish latency constraints, and they impose the safety guardrails. Everything built at the system or interface level is inherently constrained by the physics of the model it sits on.
Okay, I hear that. But let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
As a power user operating up in that penthouse, the interface layer, my daily experience feels incredibly autonomous.
How so?
Well, if I'm using an AI writing tool and I hit a rate limit or the latency spikes or I just decide I don't like the UI anymore, I just cancel my subscription.
Right.
And I spin up a different tool in literally seconds. The switching costs at the user level are virtually zero. So why does the source argue so strongly that the model layer dictates my experience when the market feels so fiercely competitive at the interface level?
Well, the source argues you are confusing the ability to change your dashboard with the ability to change the engine.
Oh, yeah.
When you swap from one writing assistant to another, you're almost certainly just moving laterally across that interface layer.
While still querying the exact same underlying model.
Exactly, just through a different API key. You might have a different user interface, sure, but the core cognitive engine, the vocabulary, the reasoning depth, the training data biases, it all remains identical.
Wow.
And the model provider can alter their API pricing structure, they can deprecate a specific functional endpoint, or even adjust their safety alignment filters over a single weekend.
And everyone has to deal with it.
Yeah. When they do that, every single application relying on that model is forced to instantly adapt. The autonomy you feel is basically superficial. The core capabilities you're utilizing are completely governed by a centralized choke point.
Okay, which means if switching interfaces is actually that frictionless, the power shouldn't pool at the top anyway. The value naturally drains downward to the layer that actually possesses the scarcity.
Precisely.
Which leads us directly into the core economics driving this entire bottleneck. Like, why is it that the model layer becomes this inescapable center of gravity?
The structural reality of the market is defined by three specific compounding economic forces that the source details. First, you have immense scale economies. We are no longer in an era where a small team of brilliant researchers can just train a state-of-the-art model on a few rented cloud servers.
Those days are gone.
Long gone. Training a frontier model today requires synchronizing tens of thousands of specialized GPUs running continuously for months.
It's insane. The barrier to entry isn't just high anymore. It requires nation-state levels of infrastructure. We're talking about physical supply chain constraints and energy grid limitations as the primary bottlenecks, not just software engineering talent.
Exactly the point. You're dealing with data center construction, dedicated nuclear power contracts to handle the energy load, and billions of dollars in upfront capital expenditure before you even know if the training run is successful.
Wow.
So that sheer capital requirement instantly filters the market down to a handful of hyperscale players.
So that's the first force, scale. What's the second?
The second economic force is learning effects.
Okay.
A traditional software application is relatively static once it's shipped, but an AI model is dynamically continuous. When millions of users query a model, they are constantly providing reinforcement learning data.
Ah, right.
Every prompt, every accepted correction, every edge case explored at all feeds back into the system, refining the latent space.
So the learning effect is basically a snowball rolling down a hill.
Yeah.
The bigger it gets, the more snow it picks up, and it just crushes everything in its path. It's a cognitive feedback loop.
Exactly. The model isn't just serving the user is actively training the model simply by interacting with it. And that data advantage compounds rapidly.
Because better models attract more users who provide more data.
Right. But the third force is perhaps the most critical for understanding the market structure, and that is scope economies.
Scope economies. Explain that one.
In traditional software, if you want to build a tool for financial modeling, you write a code base specifically for financial modeling.
Right.
If you want a tool for analyzing medical images, you build a completely different architecture from scratch.
Right.
But with foundational models, you are using the exact same matrix of neural weights to parse a complex legal brief, write a functional Python script, and compose a sonnet in French.
It does it all.
The underlying cognitive architecture doesn't have to change. The marginal cost of applying a frontier model to a completely new industry use case is remarkably close to zero.
That is wild to think about.
The source uses the strategic trajectory of XAI and their Grok models to perfectly illustrate how these three forces coalesce.
Oh, yeah, tell me about that.
Well, XAI invested the billions required to build the foundational Grok model, right? So they captured the scale economies. They aren't just renting out API access to third parties. They are vertically integrating that model deeply into the X platform at the system layer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, deploying it directly to millions of users to capture those massive learning loops and then extending its scope across real-time news parsing, code generation, and multimodal analysis.
So because they own the foundation, they capture all the compounding value generated across the entire stack.
Exactly.
Okay, but let me push back on the inevitability of this lock-in, specifically regarding businesses operating at the system layer.
Okay, go ahead.
Because, sure, consumers can switch interfaces on a whim, but enterprise businesses also migrate software all the time.
They do.
Like a Fortune 500 company might rip out a legacy CRM system they've used for a decade and spend a year transitioning to a competitor just because the licensing costs got too high. It's a massive headache, but it happens constantly.
True.
So is AI system lock-in actually fundamentally different in its mechanics than, say, switching your accounting software or untangling a massive database migration?
It is fundamentally different. Untangling a CRM involves moving static relational data from one set of tables to another, right? The EconWorks post clarifies that AI integration at the system layer relies on dynamic semantic architecture.
Meaning what, practically?
When an enterprise integrates a foundational model into their internal workflows, they aren't just storing data, they are building retrieval-augmented generation pipelines. They're converting terabytes of proprietary company knowledge into mathematical vector embeddings. And those embeddings are specifically mapped to the latent space of one particular foundational model.
Ah, wait, so if you switch models, you don't just export a spreadsheet.
No.
The new model literally doesn't understand the mathematical shape of your data.
Exactly. You literally have to recompute all of it.
You would have to recompute the embeddings for your entire corporate database.
Yes. You have to recalculate the embeddings. You have to rewrite the specific prompting architectures that you optimized for the original model's quirks, rebuild the API orchestration, and then retrain your entire staff on a system that reasons differently. The business basically integrates the AI into its operational nervous system. So the technical debt created by that deep, bespoke integration at the system layer flows directly downward, locking the enterprise into a long-term dependency on the model provider.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because the enterprise sector is waking up to the reality of this technical debt. And according to the EconWorks text, this realization is driving a massive ideological and regulatory battle playing out right now, as of May 2026.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge clash.
We are essentially witnessing a systemic clash over how these foundational models should actually be governed, given their gravity.
Right.
We are basically watching society try to decide if AI is a public utility like electricity or a private walled garden like a theme park.
Right. And the stakes involve the fundamental architecture of the future digital economy. So the source categorizes this into two fiercely competing interpretations of what a foundational AI model actually represents.
What's the first one?
View 1 conceptualizes AI as infrastructure.
So treating the intelligence layer like the electrical grid.
Yeah. Or like open source foundational protocols like Linux. Under this infrastructure view, the core model weights should be broadly accessible, decentralized, and openly distributed.
Right.
The argument is that the most robust innovation happens when developers across the globe can just download the weights, run them locally, fine-tune them for highly specific edge cases, and basically build without seeking permission from a central authority.
The ultimate open source techno-optimist vision. Everyone gets a piece of the foundation to build on.
Exactly. It treats AI as a foundational utility, where the value is generated through widespread, unconstrained application at the edge of the network.
But obviously there's a counterweight to that.
Yes. View 2 is AI as a platform.
Okay.
This is the stance that foundational models are inherently proprietary assets. Because of the astronomical capital expenditure required to train them, the billions in compute and energy we discussed earlier, the creators argue they must maintain centralized control to recoup those costs.
That makes sense from a business perspective.
Right. In this paradigm, models are managed heavily coordinated platforms where access is gated through APIs, usage is heavily monitored, and the ecosystem is tightly orchestrated by the corporation that poured the concrete.
But if the economics heavily favor the snowball of scale and learning that we talked about earlier, doesn't the platform view inevitably win just by the sheer math of capitalism?
Yeah.
Like it seems those economic forces inherently reject decentralization.
The source analysis leads exactly to that structural conclusion.
Really?
Yes. While early AI research was heavily defined by open collaboration and shared academic breakthroughs, the transition from research projects to commercial products triggered a harsh economic reality.
Right. The money took over.
The Post notes that the shift towards centralized platforms is not some arbitrary corporate strategy. It is a direct consequence of the underlying economics. The massive capital requirements naturally restrict the field to hyperscalers. And the necessity of those data flywheels strongly incentivizes keeping users trapped within a closed ecosystem to constantly harvest their interactions.
Okay, but if these massive proprietary walled gardens are becoming the default state of the market, it forces us to completely rethink how we regulate markets.
Right. Completely.
I mean, the old rules of competition no longer apply when the product is the market environment.
Yeah, and the EconWorks piece dedicates significant analysis to this regulatory failure. Traditional antitrust law was developed for industrial-era monopolies.
Right. Railroads and oil.
Exactly. It focuses primarily on consumer welfare and pricing power. So regulators ask, is this company using its dominance to artificially inflate prices for the end consumer?
But in AI,
In the AI ecosystem, that question is almost irrelevant. Foundational models might offer API access for pennies or even provide consumer interfaces completely for free.
right.
The vital antitrust question today shifts entirely from who sets prices to who governs the system on which downstream competition depends.
Because if you control the infrastructure, you don't need to gouge people on the base price. You simply capture the value created by anyone building on top of you.
Exactly. The author uses Apple's iOS ecosystem as a historical bridge to understand this. Regulators have spent years scrutinizing Apple because they control the hardware, the operating system kernel, the App Store distribution rails, and the payment processing logic.
Right. They own the whole pipeline.
And that horizontal control allows Apple to tax external developers and dictate terms of service. But the source makes a crucial distinction here.
Which is?
Control at the AI model layer is exponentially more foundational than Apple's control over the iPhone.
Wait, really? How could it be more foundational than literally controlling the physical device in someone's pocket?
Because an operating system like iOS merely provides the rails for an application to run and reach a user.
Okay.
A foundational AI model provides the actual cognitive reasoning engine that the application relies on to function. It is injecting the logic itself, not just the distribution.
Oh, wow.
Furthermore, iOS runs apps linearly. A single frontier AI model is simultaneously powering thousands of different, highly complex enterprise systems at once through API calls. The level of dynamic control is just unprecedented, and it grants the model owner compounding advantages that accelerate over time.
Right. Broad access creates innovation at the top, but deep integration creates lock-in at the bottom. The model owner doesn't just sit still while the developers build. They are constantly absorbing the ecosystem's momentum.
Precisely. The source outlines 3 specific mechanisms of compounding advantage. First, the model owner maintains preferential internal access to experimental capabilities long before they are pushed to the public API.
So their first-party apps always win.
Giving them a permanent head start. Exactly. Second, they possess near total visibility into the performance metrics of every third-party application built on their system. This allows them to exert immense influence over downstream competition.
Wait, so if a startup figures out a brilliant new workflow at the system layer?
The model owner sees the API traffic and can simply integrate that workflow directly into their base model.
That is brutal.
It is. And third, this asymmetric visibility allows the model owner to continually adjust pricing and latency to capture a disproportionate share of the total value generated by the entire ecosystem.
So what does this all mean?
It's a paradigm shift.
I mean, if I'm an independent app developer right now and I raise a seed round to build a highly specialized AI workflow tool, let's say a contract analysis platform for boutique law firms, and I build my entire architecture around a specific proprietary model.
Oh.
Am I basically just building a house on rented land?
That's exactly what you're doing.
Does this mean true competition is an illusion? If the model owner could just change the rent or the rules whenever they want? Like, they could wake up tomorrow, decide that legal analysis is a core feature for their next major release, tweak their API terms, and evaporate my entire company's value proposition overnight.
The EconWorks analysis points to that developer risk as the defining feature of the current era. You are building on rented, shifting terrain. The paradox of the AI stack is that the very same APIs that allow a small team to build a world-class application in 3 weeks, those same APIs also create an insurmountable barrier to long-term defensibility.
Because you don't own the brain.
You are entirely at the mercy of the governance decisions made at the model layer. And this drives the ultimate conclusion of the series. We are no longer watching a standard market competition where companies fight to win consumer preference. The deeper question is no longer who wins the market, but who governs the system.
We are watching a geopolitical scale struggle to determine who actually governs the digital infrastructure of the next century.
Exactly.
Well, we have mapped out some incredibly complex structural dynamics today.
We really have.
We started by discarding the idea of AI as a standalone tool, and we reconstructed it as a massive multi-layered stack where the foundational model layer holds all the cards. We explored how the brutal economic realities of scale, learning loops, and scope inevitably collapse the market towards centralized platforms.
Well-
And we saw how this renders traditional antitrust frameworks obsolete. Every time you use an AI app, you are participating in a larger battle over control and governance.
It really forces a complete reassessment of digital agency. Recognizing the stack architecture allows you to see past the immediate utility of an app and understand the broader ecosystem dynamics you're feeding.
Absolutely. And that leads directly to a final provocative thought. I want to leave you with something to mull over that builds on these ideas of compounding advantages and system lock-in.
Oh, let's hear it.
The source focuses heavily on businesses becoming dependent and locked in at the system layer. But think about your own life.
Okay.
Right now, you might feel like a final consumer who can easily switch AI interfaces. But as these models become more intimately woven into your personal daily workflows, as they read your private emails, organize your chaotic schedule, analyze your financial spending, and learn your exact tone of voice, your own personal learning effect is feeding a highly specific model.
Oh, that's deeply true.
It is building an embedding space out of your life. So at what point does the cost of leaving your personalized AI behind become so painfully high that you, the individual consumer, become permanently locked into a single proprietary model?
Wow.
When does your own data make it mathematically impossible for you to switch engines?
That is a terrifying thought.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the unseen architecture beneath the tools you rely on. Look past the interface, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of EconWorks. The goal of this series is to move beyond the surface-level descriptions of how markets work and start looking at the actual architecture of competition. We'll be back soon with another look at where the law and economics meet the market. For the full technical analysis and more from this series, visit us at econworks.com. If you found today's breakdown valuable, please subscribe and share the show. It helps us keep the analysis independent. From all of us here at EconWorks, thanks for listening.